Welcome to the Purdue Institute for Family Business video series. I'm Maria Marshall.
I'm Renee Wyatt. Today we're going to talk about fairness in the family business. So looking at some data that we have on family businesses, we asked them how they define family fairness within their family business. About 20% said they treat each according to their needs. A little bit less than 20% treat each according to their contribution. About 35% treat everyone the same regardless of their need or contribution. And about 25% don't have a definition of fairness in their family. And so when we're thinking about this, we can definitely link the definition of family fairness to the level of tension that we see in these family businesses. So among these categories, I would think that if a family doesn't have a definition of fairness, that leads to the most conflict in that family business. But actually we found that that wasn't true at all. So families that treat each according to their need have the highest level of conflict within family businesses. And we can think about this. You have some siblings and the parents treat each according to their need. And so of course, everyone's going to have different needs. So we really see this distortion of how people are treated, and that can really lead to some high conflict in family businesses.
And a lot of times, Renee, that's because need can be subjective. And what one sibling, that's where sibling rivalry comes in, with one sibling doesn't see the need, but the parents see the need. And so there can be a lot of conflict between siblings and parents that way. So let's think about the justice perceptions within a family business. And so it's particularly important, a source of conflict, when there's different justice perceptions. And that's basically how somebody perceives that the processes within a family and a family business are happening. So we're thinking about how injustice can fuel hostility and anger, and how somebody might perceive different needs and may not see the need of one, but perceives that one sibling or one person is getting more than the other, and that things aren't being fair or they don't feel just. So justice perceptions are an important trigger for relational dynamics in the family business, especially at the time of succession, because this is where need and contribution are most thought of, is when there's going to be a succession process. So there's three types of justice principles. There's distributive justice, procedural justice, and interactional justice, and we're actually going to talk about all three. So distributive justice has to do with how things are distributed. So equity is the justice principle for the business, and equality is the justice principle for the family. So you think about, in business, we want people treated by their contribution. And in a family, we usually want to be treated equally. So candy's distributed in a family equally. They all get the same. So two siblings get the same thing as their brother and sister. But in a business, right, it's on contribution. We would want our raises not to be distributed equally, but we want it to be based on our contribution. So those are equity principles that need to be balanced between the family and the business. So you've got equity in the business and equality in the family. And how are those balanced between the two when you make decisions and have processes? Procedural justice and interactional justice are kind of one and the same. One is about process and interactions between the two. So they're gonna affect each other. So you've got people often care more about how the process happens and how they get heard, more than almost what the outcome will be. So if somebody feels heard, they think that the process has been fine, and so they're more apt to agree to different kind of outcomes. They want a fair process, means that people feel that their opinions are respected, that there's a thoughtful process to decision making. And interactional justice means that everybody gets the same opportunity to be able to have their voices heard. So how are those interactions happening? Are they based on respect, sensitivity, truthfulness, a justification for making the decisions that you do? And both of those, as you can see, have to kind of happen together. You have to have truthfulness and sensitivity to be able for people to be heard and have that good process happen.
So in family businesses, we would think that, the procedural and the interactional justice are maybe more important than that distributive justice. So when we think about that, we're not so worried about who's going to take over the management and how much are they going to have, but how did we get to that decision, and how are these decisions made along the process?
That's right, and you can see here between fairness and behavioral reactions. If you've ever seen The Godfather, the Fredo effect is that the older brother thinks that he should have gotten the business, right? Because he was never part of the decision making. And so that caused that Fredo effect of resentfulness and disloyalty at the end. And so if there's a good process, then people are more apt to think that the process has been fair, that their voices have been heard, and they'll take an outcome that is not a win-win all the time if the process has been there. So you want to make sure that there is a good process, that there's, and you'll have a good outcome, even if it's not as good for you.
So the communication aspect of this is really, really important. Communicating across that process and people understand how they got to that decision.
That's right, very important.
So why family firms have conflict? Family and business systems can have conflicting logic. These two systems, like we showed in a previous video with the family business circles, how you have the ownership, the family, and the business, all of these three systems differ, and they can have different logics within each, and sometimes they don't always align. That can cause some conflicts. We can have absent or blurred boundaries between the systems. That can cause problems. We can have spillover effects of interpersonal dynamics from one system to the other. So we can have a problem in a marriage spills over into the business, or there's a business problem that the person brings home to their family. We can also have unforeseen types of conflict that we don't even see coming.
That's right. A lot of times that happens when there's scarce resources or something happens, and then that's an unforeseen conflict. The other four are people with high levels of informal power. So within a family structure, you've got some stakeholders that might have unforeseen power. So for example, the grandparent that's retired but still has a lot of say in what's happening in the business. Then there's a lot of insider information, right? So you go back to home, you tell your in-laws what are happening, and so there's a lot of insider information inside a family business that might cause conflicts. Sustained conflict over time and across domains. So for example, the sibling rivalry that continues into the family business and just can't be resolved. And of course, there's high exit costs. It's hard to leave a family business, particularly if it's super tied to the family identity. And so the cost may be leaving the family as well, and that can be more than somebody can bear. So as we think of conflict dynamics, think about that conflict is not just about where you are now and what's happening now. It has to do with what happened in the past and what might be happening in the future. So time has a big factor to play in conflict. So a lot of times we're arguing about what happened today, but it actually brings in all the things that happened in the past and what we think is going to be what's going to happen in the future. So a lot of times it's not dealing with conflicts where you are in the present can be hard when you're bringing in all of the baggage that you've had from the past. So conflict and the conflict resolution is really important to be able to move into future business dealings.
We've talked a lot about conflict in this video, and in another video we're going to really explore those different conflict management styles and those different managements that you can use to manage the conflict within your family business.
Thank you for joining us on this video on fairness and the family business. For more videos on family business and family business conflict, you can look at what is a family business, the social structure of the family, and conflict management.